window that formed the ring that had kept me hostage for the first 18 years of my life. Nobody much ever bothers to visit this town, except the truckers who stop to fill their fuel tanks because they can get some of the cheapest gas in the state here, and Mrs. Gloria Jean Graves's second cousin, who has come up from Birmingham every year for the Thanksgiving holiday since before I was born. She always said it was refreshing to get away from the big city for a few days. One time the governor came by for about 25 minutes to cut a ribbon at the new elementary school library. Everybody in town came out to see him. Daddy made me wear a dress and tie my hair back in a ribbon, just like I was going to church. 6 days a week my daddy didn't care too much how I looked, but on Sunday mornings there was no negotiating the dress code. My sister and I wore our very best dresses with a fresh pair of cotton panties underneath out of respect for the Lord, Daddy said. I really didn't think Jesus cared what I wore to Cedar Grove Baptist Church, or to see the governor for that matter, considering the fact that in every picture I ever saw of the King of Kings, he was wearing sandals and bundled up in nothing more than a big baggy robe. But I figured this governor must be the most important person I was ever going to meet, if Daddy was making me wear my navy blue Sunday dress with the white lacy collar and my patent leather Mary Janes. Martha Ann pitched such a fit about wearing her Sunday clothes that Daddy ended up leaving her at home with a neighbor. My little sister is a couple of years younger than I am, but she has always been a couple of inches taller, my guess from the time she came into this world. She has thick, dark brown hair and deep brown eyes like our mama. I have blue eyes like my daddy and straight brown hair that looks more like the color of a field mouse. Martha Ann was a pretty baby and a pretty girl. Everything on her face just fits together so perfectly. When we were little, people said we looked just like twins for no better reason than we might have been wearing the same color shirt. You had to wonder if they were truly looking at us. But one thing was for certain, Martha Ann hated putting on her Sunday clothes even more than I did. She'd have much rather been in the library picking out a new book to read than waiting to look at some strange man cut a ribbon. I told her that if she didn't stop all that stomping and snorting, she was going to get left behind. And sure enough, she did. She had to spend the entire afternoon with Ida Bell Fletcher shucking 84 ears of corn for Wednesday night supper over at the church. Ida Bell said she cooked for the Lord, but all I knew was that she smelled like an unsavory combination of leftover bacon grease and palm olive soap. She kept her big round tummy covered with a tattered old apron, permanently stained with the meals of another day. The only time I saw her without that apron was when she was sitting in church, and then she kept it folded in her pocketbook. My patent leather shoe rubbed a blister on my big toe, but it was worth it. The governor turned out to be, if nothing else, the most handsome-looking man I'd ever seen. He wore a dark navy suit and a crisp white shirt that must have been starched so stiff it could have stood up on its own. A red and blue striped tie was pulled around his neck, and the tip of a white handkerchief was peeking out of his suit pocket. I had never seen a man dressed so fancy. He was in Ringgold for only a few minutes, and then he jumped in the back of a long black car and sped off down Highway 151. I wanted to go with him so bad that for weeks after that, when I went to bed at night, I got down on my knees and begged the Lord to make me the governor's daughter. But he didn't bother to answer that prayer either, not that I really thought that he would. God put me here for a reason, Daddy kept telling me. I just hadn't figured it out yet. Now, I know my father was a certified man of God, but at a fairly young age I decided that when it came to my destiny, he did not know what he was talking about. He certainly did not understand that there was nothing for me here in Ringgold, Georgia. Sometimes I wondered if he had noticed that this town had only one red light, one part-time sheriff, and one post office, which was nothing more than a gray metal trailer perched on a bunch of cinder blocks in the back of the ShopRite parking lot. There was one losing high school football team and one diner, which has been serving pork chops on Thursdays since 1962. There was one fire station, but it burned down 5 or 6 years ago when the entire fire department, which amounted to the sum total of Edward and Langford Bosselman, were spending the night at their aunt's house over in Lafayette. And there was, thankfully, one Dairy Queen, where Martha Ann and I spent the better part of our childhood licking Dilly Bars and planning our escape.